People of the State of Michigan versus Thomas Scott Papke, 2023470. Mr. Papke is appearing by, we lost Ms. Yancey.
But Mr. Bush.
Oh, Mr. Bush, I'm sorry, Ms. Yancey is, we're supposed to have lost Ms. Yancey. All right, I'm gonna put her in the waiting room. Okay, and so Mr. Papke is here, appearing by video with his attorney, Mr. Bush, and Mr. Gabriel is the prosecutor. Mr. Bush, does Mr. Papke have any objection to continuing on video today?
No, he does not.
All right. Mr. Papke pled to a charge of possession of methamphetamine, a felony punishable by up to 10 years in the Department of Corrections. And the agent prepared the pre-sentence report, and after reviewing it during this week, I sent an email out to everyone indicating that I would score the OVs differently. And if I scored the OVs differently, it would result in a higher offense variable level. And I asked the Department of Corrections whether that would change their recommendation. And so Ms. Griffin prepared a report indicating the two options, and that's dated April 28th. Did both sides receive that pre-sentence report update?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. So with that, are there any other additions, corrections, or deletions?
I only have one that's been pointed out by my client, Your Honor. On page 2, the third paragraph, it says, on 10/21/2020, Agent Miller received a phone call from the defendant reporting he was going to be checking into the Jim Gilmore Center and would report before he did. Mr. Papke would ask that a sentence be added after that, saying, after a 2-hour phone interview with the Gilmore Center, he was denied admission.
Is this?
Okay. Mr. Gabriel, any objection to that?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so I will then indicate that defendant indicates he was denied admission.
Am I supposed to get it like a minute with my lawyer or anything? I mean,
You need time to talk to your lawyer?
yeah, can I get a second, please? Please.
Sure.
Thank you. Do
There we go. Never worked with them without exploding. Okay, we ready to proceed?
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, it's no problem. All right, so we have that correction. Any other additions, corrections, or deletions?
It's my understanding that the report with that correction is accurate.
Mr. Gabriel?
No, I have nothing, Your Honor.
Now, the agent recommends that the prior record variable be scored at 140 points, level F. Any objection to that?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
And the agent had recommended 0 offense variable points. I had indicated that I thought OV-19 should be scored at 10 points for the interference with the administration of justice. The description of the offense indicates that when the officer appeared, that Mr. Papke threw the methamphetamine pipe and the methamphetamine into the trash in order to avoid detection. So that was the reason for it. Mr. Bush?
Mr. Papke does not dispute the fact that it ended up in the trash bin.
He doesn't dispute it. Okay, Mr. Gabriel?
Your Honor,
It's just a pipe.
I
Go ahead,
did,
Mr.
I did some research too and found some, basically a position of the Michigan Judicial Institute on scoring OV-19, and it appears consistent with the court's position. I didn't initially think that since it was, the officer hadn't arrested them or really done anything other than walk towards them, that it might not count, but in reading this and reviewing cases of Baskerville and Darby, it does appear that it's appropriate.
Thank you. I'll score it at 10 points then. That makes it the offense variable 2. That makes the guidelines 19 to 38 months. I will indicate that the plea agreement entered into here involves a recommendation from the prosecutor that the minimum sentence not exceed 1 year. That would be below the advisory guideline range, but I will indicate that I will not interfere with the plea agreement entered into between the parties, and we can proceed with sentencing. Mr. Bush?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Papke and I have had some pretty serious discussions about what's going on in his life. First thing that comes to mind is he's getting too old. Methamphetamine is going to kill him if he doesn't make the steps to make the changes. There certainly are addiction issues. I would point out to the court in crafting this sentence that there was not much meth involved in this case. It certainly didn't involve violence. He was cooperative. Mr. Papke is proud to tell me that he has the support of a sober girlfriend who has a regular job and is not a user. He has been working as available with Sheila at Community Mental Health. There are no pending cases. He's signed up for the men's meth group at the county jail. I'm glad to hear that's back in existence. I thought that was suspended with COVID, so that's certainly a step in the right direction. He's telling me that he wants help. A probationary sentence, he wants to kick the meth habit. I say that with somewhat mixed feelings because that may be setting him up for failure if he is put on a probation. But he tells me he wants to do services to change his life, and I would ask the court to consider that in the sentence.
Thank you. Mr. Papke, what would you like to add, if anything?
I would like to add that, I mean, you've seen the report, they're talking about me failing drug screens here and there, and I mean, a lot of them, you know, I mean, all my cases, I've never caught no drug cases until recently, but every one of my cases are because I was high on drugs or I was doing something to get drugs, and I've asked Jed for help. I begged him not to take me off tether. You know, I begged it. You know, I was doing good on tether, and it scared me. And as soon as tether was over, I started dropping dirty again. You know, I mean, the last couple drops, I've been really good. I think my last dirty drop was in December or early January. And if I don't get some help, I mean, if you sentence me to here to county jail, then I mean, chances are I'm going to be back here. And you sentence me to prison, I'm going to be back here. I need some kind of structure. I need something to help me kick this habit. I don't want to do this. I don't want to die like this. I don't want to sit in here like this. I am too old for this.
Mr. Gabriel? You're muted, Mr. Gabriel.
That, quite honestly, but for the kind of crime committed here, in other words, tossing this glass tube that had meth residue in it, that's the only reason I made the recommendation I did. I mean, when one looks at Mr. Papke's history, looks at the fact that he appears to be a typical functioning adult with a working brain, we can't fix him. If he doesn't want to get fixed, he's had plenty of opportunities. It's very clear from the probation department or from the DOC that what kind of a person he is as far as fitting in that structure. I think basically time for a timeout to put some thought into what he's doing. I think it's a testament to the system that we're in now that the parole board doesn't pull people back in for this kind of behavior on parole and leaves us with what tools we have. The tool that I hope the court uses is follow the recommendation, put him in the jail for a year, let him come up with a plan that will, there's help out there. You don't need to be given it by the court. You go out and find it yourself. That's my position, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Papke, the reason that in the pre-sentence report that you receive, I have the agents put in the notes section every time you're placed on probation and what you do while on probation or in the Department of Corrections, so that both you and I can see just how many opportunities you've been given to do this. We are not a rehab facility. It is not what the criminal justice system is for. I mean, we provide you all the services we can. But if you think there's some magic service that we just haven't offered you yet, you're wrong. We offer you the same services that you would get at any rehab center. Substance abuse counseling, substance abuse treatment, hopefully forced withdrawal from substances, and then cognitive behavioral therapy, moral recognition therapy, all the things that you have repeatedly had. And again, it's no different than what you had at Department of Corrections, what you had at Twin County, and what you've had over and over again. And so it is unfortunate that none of those have taken, and you never know how many times it's going to take. But there's a point of diminishing returns on investments when you have 31 separate arrest records, and some of them are, small, driving while license suspended, things like that, but many are major. Many resulted in prison sentences, and again, it indicates just how many violations you've had, and I don't need to go over and over it with everyone here. You're on parole, you had, let's see.
I'll be off.
Jake, let's see. Let me just see where we're at here. Defendant was on parole at the time of the incident offense. He paroled on June 18th, 2019. His adjustment has been poor, struggled with his methamphetamine addiction throughout his parole terms, seems to have no desire to make changes. This is before you got arrested again. Positive for meth every month from March 20th or 2020 until his arrest. Been sanctioned with verbal warnings, short-term jail stays, placement on tether, treatment referrals for outpatient substance abuse treatment, IOP, as well as residential. None of these made an impact. On July 16th, 2020, Sheila of CMH informed your agent that you were not committed to change and you had no interest in IOP. You were pulled over for a driving license suspended in July of 2020. You were warned again, and in September of 2020, you were arrested for this offense. You posted a bond on September 3rd. Parole was continued with continued participation in substance abuse treatment, placed on tether for 90 days. On September 9th, Sheila from CMH told your agent that you had just begun IOP and that you had admitted you were using daily. and that you knew you would not get locked up, so you were using daily. On October 7th, 2020, you tested positive. Then on October 19th, you went to Indiana without permission, curfew monitoring violation, received a battery alert, and you charged your battery before it died, but they looked at the points and saw that you were in LaGrange. You then said you were going to go into rehab, but you couldn't get in. And then you said that you had been using and you were going to report later. You were scared to go to Jim Gilmore, advised you wanted to wait. You were reported to report immediately. You did report as ordered and tested positive for meth again, lodged to the jail, sanctioned for 10 days, followed up for residential treatment, and then you reported that you were denied inpatient treatment. So you provided two negative drug tests in February and March of 2021. And then on March 29th, 2021, you were found to be in possession of methamphetamine and paraphernalia, and those charges have since been dismissed. So the agent indicates that, maximum benefit on parole has been reached, not amenable to additional probation, and given many opportunities to engage in services, but has failed to take advantage of those opportunities. So, again, when you were stopped, what happened here? Let's see. On 9/1, the officers were dispatched, buying a vehicle from you. She wanted the police with her when they found you while pulling into the driveway. Deputy observed several vehicles next to the porch, next to a green trash can. We were you standing, you turned, you saw the deputy, at which point you put something in the trash can. You then grabbed something else, placed that in the trash can as well. Then he exited the patrol vehicle, went to you, and they found the meth pipe. And the meth pipe had residue of methamphetamine in it. Okay. Long story short, you've been through a lot with the counseling and the treatment and parole and everything. You're going to have to decide when you're ready for it. There's plenty of services outside of the criminal justice system to provide those to you. And you're right, if you keep this up, if you don't get a handle on it, you may end up spending the majority of your time in prison. But, I don't need to go through every occurrence where every term of probation and parole, you just violate and violate and violate and then come back and say, but I'm an addict, help me, let me out and give me one more chance. So I'm going to order 6 months jail, credit 0, consecutive to your parole. It's below the guidelines, but as everyone acknowledges, you have a methamphetamine addiction. You were found with methamphetamine again. You were on parole. Just don't keep doing it, because here the guidelines were for a prison sentence. But in light of everything, and taking into account the time that you have put now while this case pended, I'll give you the 6 months, and I find that to be a reasonable sentence in light of all the facts and circumstances and history of your case, Mr. Papke. Mr. Papke, you're given 3 forms advising of what your rights on appeal are, and your sentence is below the guidelines. It's within your plea agreement, so you have the opportunity to ask the Court of Appeals for leave to review your case and for the appointment of an attorney at county expense in order to do so. I'm ordering a $68 in state costs, $130 in crime victims' rights fees. I'm not going to order the additional court costs or the fine, but I do have to order that your license is suspended yet again for 1 year. I'm not giving you a license. I'm saying if you had a license, it's now suspended. But again, that statute ends on October 1st. So even though I'm suspending it, on October 1st, the Secretary of State will say, you can have your license back. So that's what's going on there. So, long story short, 6 months, minimum costs, and get this over with, and then, go to CMH, go to treatment, go to NA on the outside and get a handle on it. And then take advantage of whatever treatment you have available for the few months you have yet at the jail. All right, thank you.